ladies and gentlemen, this is Orphan Last, aka Skylar Madison, and today I'm going to go ahead and provide you the Fisheye Perspective Training Wheels, okay? This is the first of all of it. This is going to cover 5-point perspective. I have actually covered all of this material inside of the Curvilinear Perspective series. A link is in the upper right corner of the screen right now, but this is updating it quite significantly because I've found that in my previous attempts to teach curvilinear perspective, it's extremely difficult to actually communicate what it is that's going on inside of the scene, and it's very difficult for people to absorb the concepts that I'm trying to communicate inside of curvilinear perspective. Okay, so we're going to be, this is going to be the first video discussing curvilinear perspective, and specifically what we're going to be kind of discussing is basically the stuff as it pertains inside of Blender. Okay, and I've decided Blender is the best way to communicate this stuff primarily because it's 3D software and it will communicate what I'm trying to communicate with this series the best way possible. Now, the end goal with this series is so that people will be able to understand what curvilinear perspective is so that they can transition over to being able to draw curvilinear perspective inside of 2D software. Okay, that's the end goal of this series. However, if you are an animator, if let's say you've been animating in 2D for 30, 40, 50 years, okay? And let's say you just love 2D animation, and although you're willing to update the technology and your tools and stuff like that, maybe you're not really ready to make it so that the only 2D animated anything inside of your scene is just your characters and everything else is 3D models. Maybe you're not ready for something like that. Well, that's fine, okay? So this will help you be able to draw out backgrounds for your 2D animated scenes just fine. And it will be able to make it so that you can keep your normal 2D animation workflow, okay? So, this is the default scene as you get it when you open up Blender. You have a light source, you have a cube, and you have a camera, okay? And I can prove it to you. File, new, general, don't save. Okay, see, we got the exact same objects, okay? So we can select all that, press X, and delete that stuff. Press Shift A, go to Mesh and UV Sphere. Okay, let's go ahead and scale this up by 200 on the X-axis, 200 on the Y-axis, and then 200 on the Z-axis. Okay, so this has gotten to be a rather large sphere. You want this to be pretty big, otherwise this isn't going to work out very well. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to activate this X-ray mode. Okay, just click on that, and then we're going to go into edit mode. Make sure that you're set to select vertexes, okay? And then let's go ahead and press numpad 3 and select 1/2 of your entire sphere, okay? And if it looks like this, that's exactly what you want. And if you rotate around it, this is exactly what you have selected, okay? If you didn't select this, then you didn't have your X-ray toggle turned on, okay? So I'm going to turn off the X-ray, and I'm going to go ahead and press X and vertices, okay? So that deleted the vertices. Okay, now when I zoom out, with it being 200, the size 200 on all its axes, you know, things start to disappear. So you can't zoom out too much with this. Okay, this is a huge sphere. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go into the object data properties, and we're going to go normals, auto smooth, okay? Then we're going to go to the modifier properties, click on that, add modifier, subdivision surface, and right where it says viewport, okay, viewport right here, let's go ahead and tick that over to 3, and then we can't apply it. That's because we're in edit mode. Let's go into object mode and apply. All right, and now you can see that we have a nice looking bowl. And then if we go back into edit mode, we can see that our mesh, it has a much more dense concentration of little squares composing this UV sphere. Now, if I press Control Z a bunch of times, we went from this to this. Okay, that's what the subdivision surface modifier did. Okay, the next step is this. Okay, let's go into object mode. And with object mode, what we're going to do is we're going to press Shift A, and we are going to add a grease pencil blank. Now, nothing inside of the viewer happened. okay? However, inside of the collections, we now have sphere, and when we're in object mode, we can switch between collections without causing problems, okay? And we have the grease pencil, or G pencil collection, okay? So really quick here, when I select the sphere and I go into this drop-down menu here, we see object mode, edit mode, sculpt mode, vertex paint, weight paint, and texture paint, okay? When I click on a G pencil collection, I can go ahead and click on this drop-down menu, and we have object mode, edit mode, sculpt mode, draw mode. Draw mode didn't exist inside of the sphere collection because the sphere collection is a 3D mesh. Grease pencil is a completely different type of object, okay? So like I have the sphere selected. See, there's no draw mode, okay? So let's select the grease pencil, go to draw mode, and first things first, okay? What I want to do is I want to change my pencil. We see pencil right here. Let's go ahead and click on this icon of the pencil right over to the left of it, and then select F ink pen, okay? And then the radius, let's go ahead and set that to 150, and let me just go ahead and draw a few lines really quick. Okay, that's not really that big. Let's go 300, okay? Yeah, that's more like it. 300 looks good. But what I don't like is how all my lines are white. Let me press Ctrl Z a bunch of times. So let's go to the material properties tab, and let's press plus and then new. And then by default, it gives me a black brush, okay? Actually, you know what? That's still not big enough. Let's go 500. Okay, so that's much, well, I don't know. That's weird. Well, anyhow, so let's get into this. So when I start drawing with the grease pencil, one thing that you'll notice is that basically my line work will always pretty much just rotate around the origin. Let me press tab to enter into edit mode. The origin is right here. It's this little tiny orange dot right here. That is what my line work is rotating around, okay? And so I don't want that in this case. I want my canvas to be the bowl, okay? And I'm in draw mode, by the way. Right where it says origin, I'm going to go surface, and I'm going to change this to 0.25, okay? So that's good. And let's test this out, okay? And okay, 0.25 didn't really work out as well as I thought. So let's go 0.1 and see how that works out. Okay, 0.1 didn't work for crap. Okay, let's try 0.01. Okay, let's see how that works. 0.01 is better, but let's try this differently. Let's go 0.001. Okay, so with the size of this particular bowl, because I scaled it up, you know, the size of the bowl. Let me go into object mode real quick and select the sphere. With the size of it being 200 on the X, Y, and Z, okay, having your grease pencil set to surface at 0.001, it seems like it's working out just fine, okay? So that's how we're going to be working with it. So one thing that I don't like is this, okay? It's this big shadowy region right here. I feel like it will obstruct my view. This right here, I feel like it will obstruct my view, and I find it really frustrating. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z to get rid of all that. And right here, this is the materials tab. This allows us to just be able to see the materials, and that's great. No shadows, just materials. All right, so we are drawing 5-point perspective, okay? So the first vanishing point. Let's press 1 on the numpad in order to see this, okay? Okay, yeah, 1 on the numpad. Our first vanishing point is right smack dab in the center, okay? And this right here is our north vanishing point, okay? And then right where the red collides with the edge of this red line right there, okay? Right where it collides with the edge of the sphere, that is right here. That is our west vanishing point right there, okay? Now, one thing that seems to be glitchy about Blender is that sometimes I will draw a line and sometimes it won't even be visible. Sometimes it will, and it's kind of frustrating. And sometimes your lines will glitch out. You just have to press Ctrl Z, okay? So right where this red line right here, okay, right where it collides with the edge, this is your east vanishing point. All right, and then your other vanishing points are going to be right where this blue line, when I press 1 on my numpad, right where this blue line collides with the sphere, okay, or the bowl, okay? So I'm just going to press 7 and then rotate, and try not to just screw it up or anything, and just kind of use this green line just as a reference there. That works too. Okay, and one sec here, I kind of got a mess right here. Somehow I got this stuff here. Okay, so this right here at the bottom is what's called the nadir. Okay, and then right at the top, let me press Alt 7 or Control 7. Okay, right here at the top, it's really difficult sometimes to construct this. I'm just gonna freehand it. Why is it not working? Okay, it's acting up a little bit. What is going on? Okay, so right here at the top, we have what's called the zenith vanishing point. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to first construct our grid. Okay, so we need to go into object data properties. Okay, and we see layers right here. We're going to name the GP layer right here. We're going to name it vanishing points. Okay, and we are going to go into our material properties real quick. And where it says base color, we're just going to go to this A right here, which stands for alpha or opacity. And we're going to kind of decrease it a little bit so that we can see where the vanishing points are, but they're not going to be like way obtrusive. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and go to object data properties and press plus, and then I want this GP layer underneath my vanishing point layer. Okay, so I need to press this down arrow. They're like clicking and dragging for some reason doesn't work, or at least in the version of Blender that I'm using right now. So I'm going to click on this down arrow here, and I'm going to rename it perspective grid, and then that's what we're going to be working on. We're going to be working on creating our perspective grid. Okay, so how we're going to do this is by creating a new material. So we go to our material properties, we press plus, new, and then we go ahead and ramp up the values. Okay, and then we go ahead and select a red color. All right, and let's go ahead and lower the alpha of this a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to press numpad 1, and we're going to make sure that we're on our perspective grid layer. In fact, with our vanishing points layer, we're going to lock it. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to select this line tool. All right, and we're just going to click and drag, and that's a little too thin, I feel. So I'm going to press escape, and I'm going to go 900 on the radius of this thing, and click and drag, and you know what, that's fine, I guess. Let's go 1000. Let's see how that looks. No, okay, so radius, let's go 2000. Okay, so that's getting closer to the mark. So 1500. Let's take a look at and see how that looks. Okay, so that's a good thickness. So I'm gonna just click and drag, and then press either spacebar or enter or middle mouse click. Okay, so if you just click and drag, what you wind up with is these two yellow dots at the end, and you're able to adjust them. Okay, so that's why you either middle click or press enter or what have you, and this even still also kind of conforms to the shape, but you can see that it sometimes glitches out. So I'm just going to go like that. I'm just going to bring it to the edge, but not quite all the way to the very, very edge. Otherwise it tends to glitch out quite a bit. And for some reason it's glitching out, so I need to press Ctrl Z a bunch of times. So make sure that you rotate on occasion, otherwise you might not be able to catch a glitch. And if you ever create a really, really nice looking perspective grid doing this, make sure that you save it as a 3D model, especially if you're planning on doing this for animation. Okay, excellent. So that's the north vanishing point. I feel as though this is still a little saturated, all right? But, or not saturated, but high opacity. So I'm going to lower the opacity of this even still, this material. And then I'm going to press plus, new, and I'm inside of the materials, the material properties here. And so I'm going to select a new color, and I'm going to pick a dark blue. And this is going to be the east and west vanishing points. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go something like that, okay? And then I'm going to, okay, sometimes it glitches out, okay? And then I'm going to rotate a little bit and go to one and the other, okay? Now, this is the part where it gets really difficult to get things perfect. If someone can find a better workflow for this that's more effective, then feel free to do so. But this is at least how I've come up with, I guess, constructing the east and west and the zenith and nadir vanishing points. Okay, so there was a glitch, so I need to try that again. again, a glitch. Okay, another glitch. Dang, it is difficult to get it just right without any glitches. Sometimes just changing your vantage point inside of the scene can help avoid some of these glitches, kind of getting at least a little bit closer into the scene. Sometimes that helps. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to lower the opacity or alpha of the blue lines here. Excellent. And again, I'm in the material properties. Press plus, new, and I'm going to create a new material, and this will be green. Okay, and this goes from the zenith to nadir, and sometimes it can get tricky to get the right sort of vantage point to it. With how often it's glitching out, it makes it very difficult to really make sure that your perspective grid is perfect. Okay, so as you can see, we have the perspective grid. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. This is just the grid as it pertains to something functional that wouldn't glitch out. This is the best we can get for that. Maybe Blender will be able to get more refined to the point where that's okay, but this is just what we got. So I've gone ahead and lowered the opacity or the alpha of this particular color, and then I go up to the object data properties, and I am going to lock the perspective grid, press plus, and then we have grease pencil layer here. We're going to press up on the stacking order, and we're going to call this sketch. Okay, so let me show you something. Let me get close to the, let me go ahead and select the black material and select the pencil, and that's what we got. Okay, so it will draw. Let me get close to this origin here, wherever it is. Okay, there it is. And let me show you something, okay, now that I'm close to the origin, which is right there, I'm going to press spacebar, at least for me, and in order to get the spacebar to work like that, let me just press escape, edit, preferences, and then key map, spacebar action, search. Okay, and this using spacebar to search for different tools, different options and stuff is really quick, real easy. So basically, view, navigation, walk, fly. If I press enter now, basically my mouse controls everything like a first-person shooter. WASD also makes me move like a first-person shooter, but this object, this sphere, is so huge that if I try moving forward and backward and all that, I'm not going to have all that much success with that at all. Like I am actually running forward right now, and I'm not getting any close. Like it doesn't look like I'm getting any closer to the origin. This sphere is huge. Okay, it's absolutely huge. So you can see that the green lines going to the zenith and the nadir. The zenith is literally 90 degrees up. It is literally up. Okay, this is what I was trying to describe inside of the curvilinear perspective series. The nadir is literally down. It is 100% down. Okay, the west vanishing point is 100% to your left. The same thing with the east, and north is straight ahead. Okay, really handy. Okay, so let me just right click to exit out of first person view. So there's a picture that I have inside of my library. Okay, let me see if I can find it. Okay, so here's the image right here, okay? And basically you can see that this curves, and the reason for that is because this is a panoramic image. So I'm gonna go ahead and just see if I can add this picture in. Let me go into object mode up here and press Shift A and add an image reference. Okay, and let me see if I can find it. So pictures, okay, so now I'm going to scale it up to be really big. So ultimately this picture is actually wider than 180 degrees, except for on the bottom. That's the only difference. Okay, let me see if I can lower the opacity of this. Let's see, object data properties, yeah, transparency, there we go, right there. Okay, so opacity, we're able to lower its opacity. Okay, that's cool. All right, so now I'm going to just scale this down just a touch and grab it just a bit and just kind of move it into position. And so the sidewalk, it literally was all the way from my left shoulder all the way to my right shoulder. Okay, hopefully this makes sense. I took this photograph about 10 years ago. Like I don't know, it was like 2009 when I took this picture, and I had no idea why this sidewalk curved, why this red sidewalk or red gutter curved like so. And I was fascinated by that because like Photoshop had, or still has, has these panoramic photo capabilities. And I kind of, inside of the curvilinear perspective series, I explained how I took this picture. And so yeah, there's that. So that is the power. That's some of the power of this. So let's go ahead and draw. Let's go to our, okay, the empty. We can go ahead and just delete the empty, select the grease pencil, go into draw mode, and then, you know, let's go ahead and just draw some boxes so that you have an idea as to how you can draw with this, okay? So the green lines going to the nadir and the zenith up at the top are up and down. So let's go ahead and just draw a line that goes straight up and down, okay? And then the foreshortened lines go towards the north vanishing point. So we go ahead and draw our lines towards the north vanishing point. And then we use our zenith and nadir lines, the green lines, to go straight up. Okay, so now we have our first face, okay? Let me go ahead and pull out the eraser. In my mind, I kind of feel like the grease pencil is not ideal for drawing. That's just kind of how I feel. It still feels clunky to me, okay? And so now, you know, left and right are our east and west vanishing points, the blue lines. So we go ahead and we draw a line that follows the blue lines on all four corners of this face that we've created. Okay, awesome. Okay, so now let's use our north vanishing point, the red lines, in order to close up this box. Okay, and then use the, at least up on the top, and then use the zenith and nadir lines, the green lines, to close it up, and then the north vanishing point, and then the zenith and nadir vanishing point lines. Okay, and if things don't line up absolutely perfect, then you just have to kind of humor it a little bit. Kind of treat it like a bit of a sketch, I suppose. Okay, excellent. So now we have a three-dimensional rectangular box inside of the scene. Now let me show you something kind of cool. Let's draw another box, one that goes really close to the zenith and one that goes really close to the nadir. Okay, so we're going to draw now the closer you are to the center of the composition, okay, the more it's going to resemble one point perspective. The closer you get towards the edges of the composition, the more and more it's going to start resembling 2-point perspective or 3-point perspective. Okay, so that's just something to keep in mind. So let's go ahead and draw a front face, draw a corner right there. All right, it's not very visible, so I'm going to try that one more time. Okay, well, I guess I just have to kind of keep trying with it. It's kind of glitching out. Like they're visible from some angles, but not the angles that I want. That's a frustrating bit. So I'm going to press Ctrl Z a bunch of times, and maybe with the surface, I'm going to go 0.008. Let's try that. Okay, that just to make life easier on myself. No, that did not work out actually. Let's try 0.005. Let's see if that works. Okay, that seems to be working out better. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw out a corner to a box, just like so. Okay, and then draw with the blue lines going left and right, and then use the green lines to go straight up and down. Okay, well, you know, this isn't extending out as much as I wanted it to, so let's actually like get this closer to the zenith. Okay, and then use the blue lines and then bring it down. All right, and then pull out our eraser and erase the junk. Okay, so we've gone ahead and constructed a front face to a box just now. Okay, for some reason that line does not want to cooperate, so I'm going to go to edit mode and select some of these points and press X and delete points. Okay, and so that's okay. Alright, now go back to draw mode and pull out the pencil. We're going to use the red lines to kind of extend this towards the distance, okay, at the top and bottom of this. And we're going to do the same thing at this corner as well. And I'm going to decide to close it off right here, okay? That's the back of that's the back of the bottom face right there. And I'm going to extend this out as well here. And so now I'm going to use the green lines that are straight up and down, okay? And then I'm going to use them once again right here, just like so. So now when I go towards this origin, okay, when I get really close to the origin, and I press spacebar and I have view, navigation, walk, fly. I press enter and it looks like I'm looking at a skyscraper, and now it's like I'm actually able to look up and down at it, okay? So as an animation tool, this might actually be really invaluable to you, being able to do something like this. And so what I want you to do, like Blender is a free program, by the way. So what I want you to do is just to practice drawing out 100 boxes inside of Blender, regardless of if the end goal is to get you guys to draw this stuff inside of two-dimensional software. I want you to just get used to doing this, because like being able to do this inside of Blender will do wonders for you for when you transition over to drawing like this inside of a 2D software. As you can see here I'm drawing out kind of a left face to an object. You can see as I'm getting close to this west vanishing point, this is behaving a lot like two-point perspective. Okay, so now I'm gonna get rid of the vanishing points and the perspective grid from view. Okay, and now I'm just going to zoom in on the origin right here, press spacebar, view, navigation, walk, fly. Okay, and now I'm able to just look up. I'm able to look to the left. And no, it's not perfect, but like I wasn't shooting for some masterful work of art inside of Blender. But if you know something about perspective and you watch this tutorial, you're going to have a good idea as to what the
power of curvilinear fisheye perspective is.
So
join me, and together we can rule the galaxy as perspective artists.
Okay, so this part kind of concludes the section that's all about Blender and how to draw in curvilinear perspective. But I am going to continue the rest of the video talking about drawing in curvilinear perspective on a 2D surface. Okay, this is just a demonstration to really show you what I've been trying to say for the last 5 years, why I like curvilinear perspective. It's not just that, oh look, there's an artist out there that draws perspective with curved lines. No, those curved lines are communicating something. There's a reason for that. They're panoramic images. That's why it's like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to 2D software right here. All right, so we've moved on over to Affinity Designer, which is kind of like Adobe Illustrator in a lot of different ways. If you have an Adobe Illustrator, that's great. It's just that Affinity Designer is $50, and you never have to spend that $50 again on Affinity Designer in order to, you know, keep Affinity Designer. So that's the reason why I'm using this. And this is the easiest software that I have in order to create the 5-point perspective grid. It's just the best software to do that, at least in my opinion. Okay, by and large, what I have to say as to how to create this perspective grid, it's the same regardless of if you're using Adobe Illustrator or what have you, other software and such like that. Maybe there might be a little bit of minutia that might be a little bit different, but ultimately it's the same perspective grid as long as you can reproduce the same sort of looking thing. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to go for this ellipse right here. Okay, and we are going to click and drag and hold shift when we do it. Now, there's a few things that I don't like about it. First of all, it's got a fill right here. So like if I change its color, you can see it's got a red fill now. Let's go ahead and click on this little button right here, and that will get rid of the fill. Next thing I don't like, the stroke is transparent. I literally just clicked off of it and I can't see any of it. Like, it shows that it has a stroke, but it's so thin I can't see it. So I'm just going to click right here, and it's at 0 point, so it might as well be transparent. So let's set this to 5. That's actually not bad. Let's play around with some stuff real quick. Let's go to stroke up here. Okay, so we have like I have my color palette here, and then, you know, stroke. If you don't have stroke here, you just go to Windows, let's see, View, Studio, and yeah, you have all of this, like all of these. and make sure that you have, you know, strokes ticked, and then you'll see it as kind of like a pop-up menu kind of floating around like that, and then you can just go ahead and toss it on in here. Anyhow, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, and I'm just going to go ahead and just tinker around with the thickness over here. Maybe 3 points looks pretty good actually. And then let's go to color, and let's just keep it black for now. Let's press Control Shift and click and drag on this upper right corner, and that will kind of get it into a nice little position, a nice little look there. All right, so now what we got to do is press Control J and then press press and hold Control and click and drag on this middle handle here. Press Control J a bunch of times, and occasionally press and hold Control and drag down, and then press Control J a few times, and then, you know, press and hold Control and bring it down, Control J, and just keep on doing that until it winds up basically being a straight line. Okay, that's cool. That worked out pretty good. So we got all of these ellipses inside of our layers panel. That's fine. Let's select the bottom one, scroll all the way up, press and hold Shift, and click on the top one. Press Control G, that puts it inside of a group. Now, let's go ahead and click on this adjustment layer sort of button here, and go to Gradient Map. Okay, it changes everything automatically to red. Let's go with that. Click on this and press Control J, and then press and hold Shift, and then rotate. Okay, full 90 degrees. Okay, so that now, I mean, like earlier, let me press Control Z. You had all of these going across horizontally. Okay, but once we rotate 90 degrees, we now have a bunch of them that are going now vertically. All right, and now I'm going to double click on the gradient map, which is, you know, right here, and I'm going to click on this darkest region, which is the far left region, and I'm going to change the color to a blue. All right, that worked out pretty quick and easy. All right, so now there is this, you know, where it doesn't matter what you have here. Basically, okay, so first you have, you know, the rectangle tool, you have the ellipse tool, you have the rounded rectangle tool, and then, you know, you might not have the double arrow tool, but if you click on this, you're going to get a lot of different shapes. Okay, so you got the double star tool. So basically, you click and drag and hold Shift, and I don't like its color, so I'm going to change its color to being, well, I'm going to get rid of the fill, that's for sure. I'm going to change its color for the stroke to being kind of a, let's go purple. No, purple is a little too confusing. Green works for me. Green works. All right, and so what we're able to do is we're able to just kind of bring it into position here, and it says that there's 5 points here. Let's go ahead and ramp that all the way up. I've shown how to do this a number of times on my channel, but you know, having a repeat's not bad. I've even shown how to do it with kind of something similar with Krita, and so anyhow, inner radius, let's go ahead and dial this down, and then point radius, you'll notice that if I move it, you'll notice that this point ends here and this point ends here. We want them all to end at the same point. So let's go ahead and just dial that all the way up. And then let's bring this, let's make sure snapping's turned on. Let's bring this right here in the center or something. You know what, it doesn't matter how big this is. Let's just go something kind of like that. That looks good to me. You know, the radius of the point seems a little bit weird. So I'm going to change this down to maybe 2 and see how that looks. You know, that looks better, but I feel like I can do better than that. So let's go point radius of 1. That looks excellent. Okay, so we got our perspective grid all made up right here, right now. Okay, so I'm going to grab all of these, press Control G, and call this perspective grid. Awesome. All right, so at this point, you got this cool looking thing. You could go ahead and go file save or file export or what have you, and you could put it into Clip Studio Paint, Photoshop, or any other program. You got this perspective grid totally accessible to you, okay, inside of 2D software. Now, normally I don't leave this perspective grid like this. I mean, if that was like having a circle in the center of your canvas that has all of this cool stuff is kind of idiotic, and then just having like this white void on the outside of your perspective grid. Normally what I do is I just go, I just go ahead and just press and hold Control and dial this thing really big, okay? And then I decide, okay, do I want to be looking up at the scene? And if so, if I want to be looking up at the scene, you know, I might have to actually make this grid a little bit bigger, depending on what the view is. Do I want to be looking to my left? Do I want to be looking to my right? Do I want to be looking down at the scene? That sort of thing. And, you know, do I want there to be a lot of distortion? How much of a wide angle view? I mean, how many degrees do I actually want to see? Because if you notice, you know, the edge of the canvas, let me just go ahead and draw some things out real quick here. If you notice the edge of the canvas here and the edge of the canvas here, it's not going all the way to where our vanishing point is over here or over here, okay? So this, like if you were to draw a picture of this right here, it wouldn't be a full 180 degrees, but it would be more of a viewing angle than you could ever get with linear perspective, okay? Now, the bigger and bigger you get your perspective grid to be, the less of a viewing angle you have, okay? So like you'll notice that the lines don't curve as much. And so this, like if I were to draw a picture like this, by and large, people would think that this would be a linear perspective drawing, okay? And that's fine. It's just, for me, I mean, I love curvilinear perspective. It's just, it kind of defeats the point of having a curvilinear perspective grid if you're not using at least a good amount of the perspective grid going on. Okay, so this is how we go ahead and draw inside of curvilinear perspective. Okay, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and lower the opacity of the perspective grid just a bit. Let's say, at least for me, I'm dialing it down to 50%. Okay, and layer 1, I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. And inside of Affinity Designer, it has a pixel persona so that I can draw in pixels. And so now I'm going to create a pixel layer, and now I am going to pull out my pencil or my brush basically, and I'm going to start drawing. So we have already established that the zenith and the nadir are up top right here where my cursor is. That's the zenith. This is the nadir down here. This is the west vanishing point. This is the east vanishing point, and this is the north vanishing point. So the blue lines represent zenith and nadir. So that's up and down. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a black line that goes straight up. Then I'm drawing kind of a front face to an object. Okay, so I'm going to now use the east and west vanishing points in order to kind of just draw out the the top edge of this face, and then the zenith and nadir vanishing points in order to draw another edge of vertical edge of this front face. And then I'm going to use the east and west vanishing points there. Then I'm going to use the north vanishing point, and I'm going to use the north vanishing point on all four corners specifically. Okay, and then I go ahead and use the zenith and nadir vanishing points in order to draw out the back face, and then use the east and west vanishing points to draw the top and the bottom of this. And unless you're using something like Krita seems to be the best software for, using a perspective guide to draw in curvilinear perspective. Like, I don't know, you might have to kind of experiment a little bit and just kind of humor the perspective. Even with there is a reason why I'm not using Krita, and that's just simply because I just don't like the interface. It is a great piece of software, but I just don't like the interface. Okay, so over here, I'm just going to draw a front edge. So this is starting to resemble two-point perspective because I'm approaching the edge of the perspective grid. Okay, so now I'm going to use the north vanishing point on the top and bottom of that, and then zenith and nadir, and then the east and west vanishing points to get this right face created, and then zenith and nadir once again. And now I'm going to use the north vanishing point once again, and then I'm going to use the east and west vanishing points. Now we still have the back face to go ahead and create. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the east and west vanishing points, the north vanishing point, and that's good. Then the zenith and nadir vanishing points in order to kind of bring this down. It looks like the way that I drew out some of the line work needs to be adjusted a little bit so that the corner just matches up just right. All right, so that looks good. All right, awesome. Okay, so you can tell that we are looking at the bottom face here. So since we can see the bottom face of that box, obviously this is the horizon line going on through here, okay? Right where the north vanishing point happens to be, at least most of the time. Most of the time when you're drawing in curvilinear perspective, that's the way it works. But if I draw a box right here, for example, since we are looking at the top face of this object right here, we are looking down at it because it is below the horizon line right here, okay? So we're looking up above the horizon line and we're looking down underneath the horizon line. The same rule applies with linear perspective, but it starts becoming a lot more applicable as you start getting, closer and closer to the nadir or something like that. But yeah, like, you can make some really interesting stuff. Now, this actually helps out quite a bit inside of animations and such like that, because like you're able to look up and then look down by drawing just one picture, and it's really stinking cool. All you need to do is just kind of pan the camera around and all that. So yeah, just go ahead and practice drawing out a couple hundred boxes like this, okay? Just fill up a bunch of pages full of you drawing boxes in curvilinear perspective, all right? And if you're not using software and, you still want to be able to do this, and you didn't really catch the very concept of how to make a perspective grid, ultimately it's this. Let me go File, New, and just create a new file, okay? Basically, if you're just working freehand and such like that, you can do this freehand. Basically, you go ahead and decide where your north vanishing point is, and then you just go ahead and, you draw out your lines. I would use a ruler for this, but, the rulers don't exist inside of here, and I'm showing you how to do this freehand. You decide if you're where you are in the canvas, okay? So if I decided that, okay, well, I'm kind of wanting to look up, well, if you're looking up, then the north vanishing point's probably going to be pretty low if you're looking up, okay? And so then I need to kind of extend this out. All right, so that's the north vanishing point right there. Are you looking left or are you looking right? If you're looking to your left, then it's going to be the vanishing point. The north vanishing point is going to be further to your right, and yeah, you would want to do something like that. If your west vanishing point is off the canvas somewhere, then you just kind of figure out where it is, kind of, and you kind of freehand what you can, okay? And then decide, okay, well, since I'm looking up, the north vanishing, the zenith is probably going to be going something like this. Now, one thing to keep in mind is the closer to the north vanishing point you are, the straighter your lines are going to start being. So maybe a curvature less intense. But as you start getting further and further away from that north vanishing point, you're gonna start winding up with curvatures like that, okay? Or if you want to just draw just the perspective grid, like the whole thing, just generally the whole concept of it is purely in just, you have your north vanishing point, you have your east and west vanishing points, and you try to form these as a circle, initially, because that represents your full 360 degrees. And then you just kind of start drawing lines from your east and west vanishing point that kind of curve like so, okay? And that's the general gist and the idea, all right? And then you have your zenith and nadir vanishing points, which goes more like that. And I have freehanded curvilinear perspective on my channel on multiple occasions. I really actually enjoy doing that. So you can create this perspective grid inside of your sketchbook. You can create this perspective grid digitally. It doesn't matter. I have multiple pictures inside of my sketchbook that use curvilinear perspective. Normally I'm working with it more like this, where I'm more so zoomed in on the perspective grid, kind of like how this is. This I don't like having all all of this blank space here on my canvas. It doesn't make sense that this region of the paper is like this region in green. It doesn't make sense that that would be my canvas and only my canvas when the paper is larger than the canvas. That doesn't make sense to me. Okay, so generally, if you're able to follow along with this, I really want you guys to just practice drawing out a couple hundred boxes. And you know, I do have, you know, of course, the Perspective Training Wheels series where I've taught you guys how to measure things inside of linear perspective. By and large, the same sort of concepts still exist inside of curvilinear perspective. It's just that, you know, if you need to say measure in the center of this, well, you know, there's not too much of a curvature going on, but you know, you just kind of curve your X a little bit, and you need to be aware of how your box is curving and kind of curve your X accordingly. Now, of course, you can run into contextual proportional errors, and so you need to make sure that you are measuring things throughout your whole canvas a lot while doing this. But basically, you know, I've gone ahead and successfully split this box in two, vertically and horizontally. And let me just go ahead and use, well, let me use a color that I haven't been using on the canvas, kind of a purpley color. So you can see I've split this front face here into two parts, vertically and horizontally. And so now I guess it makes 4 parts, technically speaking. So you can still measure things. You can still draw out extensions and such like that. It's just that you're probably going to have to be a little bit careful about how you measure. And you know, to me at least, while I'm doing this, having it be a little bit of guesswork is fine. Having it be not 100% accurate is fine. No one's going to double check your work, but what they will notice is if you have an object, say right here, and then way off in the distance, you know, you draw another object that's supposed to be the same and it's that big, okay? Like if this object is closer towards the north vanishing point, further away from us, and you go about drawing it that big, way off in the distance, you know, like this big-ish, it's going to look really weird. What you should do under that specific situation is you should go ahead and extend your edges towards the north vanishing point, and you actually have everything that you need right there in order to make sure that it's at least the same height and the same width, at least. In terms of depth, though, you might want to measure it out, and you know, but the measuring thing, it might not be 100% accurate, but at least you're being careful. So if this object were out here, it would more so resemble what I just drew out there. I know it's not like the most amazing thing. Let me try to get it to look a little bit better. There we go. And so yeah, that's how you would kind of extend this box off out towards the distance. And the same thing with everything else. But like I said, you know, you might want to measure things out a little bit, you know, in order to create your extensions and such like that. But yeah, so this is how you, these are the very basics of drawing in curvilinear perspective. I will be drawing some images, kind of detailing each and every single line that I draw on the canvas later on down the road. As I draw a full illustration, hopefully people are going to be able to follow along. Prerequisite is that you watch my Perspective Training Wheel series in order for you to understand what I'm doing inside of those videos. Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you guys would like to get more notifications from me, feel free to join my Discord. A link to my Discord is in the video description below. If you'd like to support this channel, you could purchase one of my t-shirts. A link to my Teespring is in the video description below. Or you could go to my Patreon. A link to my Patreon is an image of my mascot in the upper right corner of the screen right now. Any support would be much appreciated. And if you've enjoyed this content and would like to see more, feel free to click on anything else appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your time.